You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get to what head coach Fran Brown had to say on naming his starter. And he had a couple of quotes that I thought were really interesting, and we're going to analyze them right now. And my first takeaway from what Fran Brown said to the media yesterday is that tie goes to the runner in the quarterback competition. And in this case, the runner was Rickie Collins, to use a baseball analogy, since baseball season is now in full swing. Shout out to the New York Mets, who continue to just have outstanding pitching, but they can't hit. It's really weird, but that's neither here nor there. Here's what Fran Brown, though, had to say, and I'm going to read it to you, all right? Quote, "We just felt as though if it was even, that he had to get it because he hadn't gotten the opportunity of knowing everything. So for him, just learning everything and it being even, giving him the opportunity of just constantly getting better." That was always my thought in this quarterback competition, that if it was even, Syracuse was going to give the starting job ultimately to Rickie Collins. But Fran Brown, at the same time, he doesn't mess around. He's going to play the best player, regardless of where you came from, regardless of your prior pedigree. Obviously, certain guys get more benefit of the doubt than others. For example, if Kyle McCord last year struggled a little bit in camp, which he didn't, then he still would have been the starting quarterback. But you get the point. Fran Brown is going to always play who he thinks is going to give him the best chance to win. That being said, if it was close, or even in this case, Rickie Collins was going to get the starting job. And as Fran Brown alluded to, Rickie Collins is still learning a new offense from offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. And the other two quarterbacks in the competition, really, aside from the true freshmen Luke Carney and Rich Bellin, but the other two main ones were Jakhari Williams and Michael Johnson Jr. Those guys were with Syracuse last year. They already know the offense. They're not learning it. Those guys are just trying to get better. Whereas a guy like Rickie Collins is not only trying to get better, he's also doing it at the same time while he's learning an offense, a new one, which is not easy to do. So if it's close, it was always going to go to Rickie Collins. And I think the fact that Collins was at least even with them just shows that he's probably better, because, again, he's learning a new offense, which means he's thinking probably more than those other quarterbacks, and yet he's still even with them, or maybe a little bit above them in terms of how they're actually performing. So this is not a surprise. Fran Brown doesn't mess around, but Rickie Collins was the favorite from the start to be Syracuse's starting quarterback as soon as he committed, barring Kyle McCord getting that fifth-year waiver and deciding to return to Syracuse. So that was my number one takeaway from it, that tie goes to the runner, and the runner was always Rickie Collins. Number two, I teased this at the beginning of the show, but from what Fran Brown said, I think someone's going to enter the transfer portal in the spring. For those that don't know, there is a spring football transfer portal window. It opens on April 16th and it runs until April 25th, and it gives everyone in college football another chance to enter the portal. And Syracuse last year made a number of additions in the spring portal window that actually turned out quite well for the Orange. I mean, Clarence Lewis, a starting cornerback. They got Savion Washington, a starting offensive lineman, and more in that spring portal window. Oh, plus a guy by the name of Michael Johnson Jr., who was the backup quarterback last season. Just saying, that spring portal window is pretty important. Here's what Fran Brown had to say, though, regarding the backup quarterbacks and why ultimately I believe someone's going to enter the spring portal window. He said, quote, "They're all working their butts off and doing a good job, so we'll see how it goes. Somebody may want to go in the portal or not. That's just the nature of the business. And we wish them the best because they've done a good job." That sounds like someone's probably going to enter the portal. So now the question really becomes, who's it going to be? Well, let's rule out the true freshman. Okay? It's not going to be Luke Carney. It's not going to be Rich Bellin. They just got here. They're not going to enter the transfer portal. If they do, I'll be wrong, and I will also be shocked. They're not entering the portal. So it'll likely be one of the other guys who were competing for the starting job. Jakhari Williams or Michael Johnson Jr., who were both with Syracuse a year ago. I got no inside knowledge on this, but I'm going to make a prediction right here, right now, here on Locked On Syracuse. You ready? Jakhari Williams is going to enter the spring portal window. What do you think? Comment in the comment section below. I'm going to explain to you my reasoning why I believe Jakhari Williams will enter the spring portal window. There are 3 reasons, okay? Number 1, Michael Johnson Jr. is the son of co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach Michael Johnson. I could be wrong, but I don't see Michael Johnson Jr. leaving in the spring portal window and leaving his father. Could be wrong. Don't see it happening. Number 2, who was the backup quarterback last year for Syracuse football? It was Michael Johnson Jr., not Jakhari Williams, and both were on the roster, obviously, a year ago. Fran Brown also talked about in that press conference about that there's still a battle for the second quarterback job and the third quarterback job. Well, Michael Johnson Jr. was the backup to Kyle McCord last year. So if Williams once again doesn't beat out Michael Johnson Jr. for the number 2 job, is he really going to stick around to be the quarterback 3? Is he even going to get the quarterback 3 job? I mean, there's 2 true freshmen there, and Luke Carney and Rich Bellin. Why can't they earn the 3rd string quarterback job? Is he really going to do it? Once again, I'm explaining to you my prediction, why I believe Jakhari Williams is ultimately going to enter that spring portal window. And number 3 of why I believe he will do it is, what if Rickie Collins is good? What if he's good? Right? Collins is only a redshirt sophomore. So he's got 3 more years of college eligibility left. Now, I understand this is a new era of college sports. You can't necessarily look too much into how many years of eligibility someone has, because you could get someone with multiple years and they could leave the following season in the transfer portal. That could obviously happen. But that being said, if Rickie Collins has a really good season over at Syracuse, and it's maybe not good enough to go to the NFL and be a first-round pick, because he could be technically eligible for the NFL draft. It would be 3 years out of high school. But let's say it's that middle ground of, you're not going to be a first-round pick in the NFL, but you're also really good. I think Syracuse would find a way to be able to pay him so he could stick around for another season, in which case Jakhari Williams would have no opportunity to play in 2026 because Rickie Collins would be the starting quarterback, which means that Jakhari Williams didn't play as a true sophomore or as a true freshman, true sophomore, and would have no opportunity to play as a junior. Hello? Doesn't that kind of sound like what happened with Rickie Collins? He just could never get the starting job because there was always someone ahead of him on the depth chart. Ultimately, I believe that Jakhari Williams is going to enter that spring portal window. Could be wrong. I don't have inside knowledge of it, but just judging from what Fran Brown said in that quote, I'll read it to you once again. They're all working their butts off and doing a good job. So we'll see how it goes. You know, somebody may want to go in the portal or not. That's just the nature of the business, and we wish them the best because they've done a good job.